Saturday Night Live is under fire for a joke on their program on February 20th, where comedian Michael Che stated, quote, "Israel is reporting that they vaccinated half of their population. I'm going to guess it's the Jewish half." Predictably, there have been swift condemnations demanding an apology and retraction for the statement. Former Israeli military spokesperson Avi Meir tweeted, "It's all fun and games until you start promoting anti-Semitic myths. NBC, SNL, apologize." Eli Kohanim, the official State Department envoy to combat anti-Semitism, called the joke modern-day blood libel against Jews. Making this about anti-Semitism is an attempt to deflect from the real punchline, that Israel is a human rights violator with criminally unequal treatment for Palestinians. This is an indisputable and well-documented fact. Yet in the American media landscape, even a reference to it is considered unacceptable. But if critics really want to make it about the accuracy of the claim about vaccine distribution, that's worth looking at too. Israel is making headlines for rapidly rolling out the vaccine for its 9 million citizens, about 1.5 million of whom are Palestinians with Israeli citizenship. According to reports, they are receiving the vaccine at the same rate that Jewish Israelis are receiving it. That's great, but that's not the real story here. See, U.S. and Israeli politicians like to pretend that the only Palestinians that matter are the ones living within Israel's 1948 borders, and that the 5 million Palestinians living in the West Bank and Gaza are not their problem. It's a deliberate concealing of the situation, that all of Palestine is under brutal Israeli military occupation or blockade. If you properly include that population, SNL's 50% reference is actually quite accurate. Under international law, Israel is responsible for the occupied Palestinian population. According to the Fourth Geneva Convention, quote, "Medical supplies of the occupied population, including adoption and application of the prophylactic and preventative measures necessary to combat the spread of contagious diseases and epidemics to the fullest extent of the means available to it." Israel's health minister recently scoffed at this legal obligation, making his own joke, which oddly didn't receive any backlash, stating that Israel has no more obligation to vaccinate Palestinians than the Palestinian Minister of Health has to take care of dolphins in the Mediterranean. So far, Israel has only authorized a few thousand vaccinations to the West Bank's population of 3 million. Meanwhile, Israeli settlers living illegally in the West Bank are receiving the vaccination at a rapid rate. And the same goes for Gaza, which is under strict Israeli military blockade. Anything that goes in and out of Gaza is dependent on Israeli approval. There, Israel approved only a minuscule 2,000 vaccines for a population of 2 million. But as of February 16th, was withholding the shipment and using it as blackmail, telling the elected government that if they did not make major political concessions, they wouldn't get the shipment. Of course, this is a form of collective punishment on innocent Palestinians, which is also a war crime under the Geneva Convention. And this doesn't even address the overall reality of medical apartheid imposed by Israel, doing things like denying life-saving medical equipment to be shipped into Gaza and denying permits for West Bank residents to travel for crucial treatment. Both the cruel, genocidal blockade on Gaza and the hyper-violent Israeli military dictatorship imposed on the West Bank are off-limit topics for mass media like NBC. And apparently, so is any reference to any fact-based inequality. So while there is a huge uproar over a 7-second joke on SNL, there is no outcry over the fact that Israel is denying millions of people basic human rights under an illegal occupation, including denying them the vaccine. Look, the real joke here is how this extremely obvious reality is taboo, and calling any attention to it is subject to a massive pressure campaign, when the real pressure campaign should be against apartheid, not those calling attention to it.